When you're getting a new piercing, one of the last things you want to think about is a beloved piercing or a new piercing migrating, or even worse, rejecting. While fortunately most piercings heal without issue, there are occasional complications that are worth being aware of, and one of those is rejection. While it's not especially common, it does happen frequently enough that it is helpful to be aware of the signs, especially if you have a piercing that's more prone to migration. The good news is that migration can often be addressed, and in many cases prevented altogether, with the right jewelry, care, and placement. In this video, we're going to break down exactly what migration is, how it differs from rejection, and the key signs to be aware of, plus what you can do if you do notice signs of migration in your piercing. Before we get started, I'm Ruby and welcome to Pierced Owl. If you like piercings and you like watching videos about piercings, subscribe to our channel where we post videos every week about all things piercings. Okay, let's get into it. Before diving into the signs of migration, it's important to understand how it differs from rejection. While they are related, they aren't the same thing. And while migration is a symptom of rejection, migration can happen just on its own and doesn't always necessarily lead to full-on rejection of a piercing. So first, let's go over what rejection is. Rejection is when your body is actively trying to get rid of the piercing. Well, not necessarily the piercing, but the jewelry in the piercing. When rejection is happening, your body treats the jewelry like a foreign object and is trying its best to push that jewelry totally out of the body. And this often results in the jewelry being pushed to the surface and without intervention being totally pushed out of the body. And while rejection is possible in any piercing, surface piercings like navels, eyebrow piercing, or dermals are most prone to rejection due to the shallow tissue of the piercing area. If you do want to learn more about rejection, we have a whole video all about it linked down below where we go over the causes, the signs, and how to respond to piercing rejection. So how is rejection different from migration? Migration happens when your body pushes the jewelry from its original placement to a new spot. In some cases, migration can lead to total rejection. So if a piercing is showing signs of migration, it's best to monitor it to make sure it doesn't look like it's full on rejecting. So now that we know what migration is and how it's different from rejection, let's go over what causes migration. Migration can happen for a few different reasons. Improperly fitted jewelry can lead to migration, or incorrect placement, as well as constant movement, friction, and rubbing on the piercing and jewelry. All of those things can contribute to migration, but some piercings are just more prone to migration. Anti-eyebrow piercings, navel, and regular brow piercing, as well as dermal piercings, all have a higher chance of migrating. The reason why these piercings are more prone to migration is that these piercings are typically placed on a flatter surface of the body. Unlike a lip or a nostril or a ear piercing, it has a very distinct front and back surface, and dermal piercing go through a ridged or a flat surface, hence the name. And that placement just makes it more easy for the body to push that piercing out or for the jewelry to slowly move to the surface with time. While this isn't the case with all of these piercings, plenty of people are able to enjoy dermals or eyebrow piercings or navel piercings for a lifetime. These piercings do have a reputation of being more prone to migration. So if you are to get one of these piercings, if you have one or if you're planning on getting one, it's just good to keep in mind that these have a higher chance of migrating. And by being aware that those have a higher chance of migration, you can keep an eye on it to make sure those piercings stay happy and healthy. So if your piercing is migrating, there will be signs. It doesn't just happen out of the blue, and often it takes a little bit of monitoring to know for sure if your piercing is migrating. Let's go over a few of the signs. One of the most telltale signs that your piercing is migrating is that you'll start to see more of the jewelry than you did before. If your piercing is healed and you start seeing more of the bar or post and it just becomes more visible around the piercing, that is definitely a sign of migration. Seeing more of the bar kind of shows that that piercing is moving a little bit more to the surface. Another sign similar to that is that you can see your jewelry more clearly through the skin. The piercing bar is really shallow to the skin. You're going to be able to see that jewelry a tiny bit more through the skin than you would in a piercing that is set a little bit more deep. Another sign of migration is that the holes of the piercing are looking a little bit more large or thin. So what this looks like is skin between the entry and the exit point could start to look a little bit more thin or stretched out or transparent when the piercing is migrating. Migrating piercing may also become irritated or inflamed, and this isn't necessarily due to infection, simply that area being irritated by the jewelry being pushed to the surface. And finally, another sign of a migrating piercing is that the jewelry moves more easily or just feels looser. If your jewelry feels less secure or moves more than it used to, this can definitely be a sign of migration. Speaking from personal experience, I'm currently dealing with a little bit of migration in my eyebrow piercing. I've had it for over 2 years, and in those 2 years, particularly in the past year, I've noticed that bar showing a little bit more than it had. So initially I was fit with an 8 millimeter bar, and that was great for about a year. However, in the past year, I did notice that bar was showing a little bit more. That jewelry was getting caught more easily, like on my pillowcase, or when I was putting on a sweater, I would just notice that that piercing would kind of get caught. Probably not helping with the migration, but the longer bar also just made it more easy to get caught on things. About a year ago, I went to my piercer and I just asked for her opinion, and she told me your piercing looks healthy. However, it may be experiencing a little bit of migration, just moving a bit to the surface, which isn't unusual with eyebrow piercings. A few months later, I ended up downsizing my jewelry to a 6 millimeter just so I wouldn't have as much of the bar showing, and that was great. However, a few months after, I did notice that even with that 6 millimeter bar, there was a little bit more bar showing, which kind of just confirmed for me that yes, that piercing is migrating. There's more bar showing. And in addition to that, I did kind of notice that the piercing holes were getting a little bit larger. I was able to deduce from all those signs that my eyebrow piercing is definitely migrating. I do have plans to retire it probably in the next week or so, just because I've noticed it's a little bit irritated, like to the touch. It doesn't feel like 100% healthy like it had before, which is definitely a bummer. I really love my eyebrow piercing, and it makes me sad to see that I will have to retire it. Also, I've seen migrating eyebrow piercings that have led to rejection, and I really don't want a scar right here. So I'm intervening before it becomes like a rejected piercing. Yeah, it's definitely a bummer, but of course, I can always get that area re-pierced. That's my anecdotal evidence of signs of a migrating piercing. So now that we know the signs of a migrating piercing, let's go over what to do if you suspect that your piercing is migrating. So signs of migration are a cause for concern. However, I think before taking out a piercing immediately or jumping to the conclusion that you need to retire it, it's good to take some time to assess the piercing before you panic. Sometimes piercings can migrate just a little bit and stop. However, other times a piercing can migrate to complete rejection. So let's go over what to do if you suspect that your piercing is migrating. Well, first things first, if you do notice that your piercing is showing signs of rejection, you do have the intention of keeping that piercing or preserving it for as long as possible, it's important to monitor the piercing closely just to see if there are signs of consistent migration. So what you can do is take photos every few days or so, close enough so that you can see like any differences that may appear over a period of time. And that way you can track changes in the position of the jewelry. Comparing that progress over time can kind of confirm whether or not you are experiencing migration. Next, of course, you can visit a professional piercer. An experienced piercer can examine your piercing and let you know whether or not it is migrating and kind of give you a plan of action. A professional piercer can also recommend appropriate jewelry swaps or aftercare adjustments that can help with the health and longevity of your piercing. Another thing that can help if you do notice signs of migration is switching to better fitting jewelry. You never downsize your jewelry, and that long oversized jewelry piece that was never downsized is getting caught on things or snagged. That can lead to some migration. Also, jewelry that's too big or that's made of low quality materials isn't necessarily great for the health and longevity of your piercing. Whether you think your piercing is migrating or it just seems a little strange and off, it is obviously helpful to make sure that you're wearing jewelry that is high quality and fits correctly. Another thing to do if you suspect migration is to avoid pressure, pulling, or irritating that piercing further. So what this means is avoid sleeping on that piercing, avoid catching it on clothing, or playing and messing around with that jewelry. Gentle care is key to minimizing stress on that area, which can lead to migration. Worst case scenario, if you do suspect that your piercing is migrating, is to retire that piercing. And I know no one wants to hear that. It's really a bummer to be told that your piercing should be retired. But if you're piercing is consistently migrating and isn't showing any signs of stabilizing, this is really the only option. Full on rejection sucks. It's uncomfortable. It's honestly ugly. It doesn't look good when a piercing is rejecting. It gets really irritated and crusty and can lead to scarring, which of course most people would want to avoid. The nice thing about retiring a piercing is that as long as you kind of like intervene before it rejects, you can heal that area and hopefully eventually get that area pierced again. So yeah, migration can be really frustrating, but it's not the end of the world. By catching it early and taking the right steps, you may be able to stop the movement or at least minimize the damage. As always, checking in with a professional piercer and making sure you take care of that piercing properly with the appropriate aftercare are your best tools for the health and longevity of your piercing. So that about covers it. What to do if your piercing is migrating, the signs, the symptoms, basically migration 101. So if you like this video and you're looking for more content on all things piercings, you can check out our YouTube channel, subscribe down below, and ring the bell so that you never ever miss a new video or an update from us. If you're looking for more content from us, we're on Instagram and TikTok at Pierced Owl. If you want to read up on some piercings, check out our blog on our website and link down below. And if you want to spice up those healed piercings of yours and shop for some new jewelry, check out our website, piercedowl.com. All right, thanks for watching our video, and we will see you next time. Bye!